49ers not done yet. New signing. It is the cornerback, Jack Jones. And not on a Friday night walk in front of a old schoolhouse that burned down in 1985. Crazy spot for a 49ers update, but why not? Here we go. Jack Jones, drafted by Bill Belichick in 2022 to the New England Patriots. Played for the Raiders, where he had 10 pass breakups in 2024. The guy is a ball hawk. And he most recently was with the Miami Dolphins. Now he's with the 49ers on a one-year deal. Just look at the 49ers secondary. The corners played well last year. I think more of the issues were at safety and obviously with the pass rush, but the 49ers secondary is now significantly deeper than it was in 2025.
And they might get even deeper once this NFL draft passes. The 49ers also hosted a safety from Texas Tech, the third safety that the 49ers have on their top, or the third Texas Tech player that the 49ers have on their top 30 visit list ahead of this 2026 NFL draft. And it is the guy who's been an absolute ball hawk earlier in his college career. His name is Cole Wisniewski, and he had 8 interceptions to lead the entire FCS just a couple seasons ago with North Dakota State. That, of course, is Trey Lance's alma mater. But you can see there, Cole Wisniewski was a snub from the combine, did not have a pick. That was not an interception that you see here on the picture for Texas Tech. He had 8 picks to lead the nation with North Dakota State before he transferred, but did not have a pick with Texas Tech, but was still a good safety for them. Probably going to be a special teams guy. He plays with extreme grit, so maybe could be somebody who plays near the box at the NFL level, but he is taking a top 30 visit with the 49ers. But we've got to get to Jack Jones. I mean, this is somebody who has started at the NFL level multiple seasons. This is somebody who is a ball hawk. Jack Jones has picked off several passes over the last 2 seasons. He also, though, has given up 16 touchdowns over the last 2 seasons. I think that this is the definition of a boom or bust player. Also, there are some off-field issues with Jack Jones, and that might be one of the reasons why the 49ers were able to get him to a one-year deal. But I do have to say that San Francisco's secondary, as I mentioned at the top, is very much deeper than it was last year. They've already added Nate Hobbs over the course of this free agency, and now they add Jack Jones. So let's take a look at how this is going to work on the 49ers depth chart. Mike has made the tool, and now you could see it. Diamondo Lenore, Jack Jones has the free agent tag on one side. Renardo Green, Saran Neal on the other. Now, I'm going to go to the old school depth chart just for illustration's sake here. I still think that the old school depth chart has some usage because we could see a little bit of a wider picture of how this might work. Saran Neal is more of a special teams weapon for the 49ers, and I think that's how he has to be viewed in any of these roster discussions. Right now, here at the top of the 49ers cornerback room, you've got Diamondo Lenore and Renardo Green on the outside. Upton Stout is the nickelback. Now, Jack Jones has played 95% of his snaps in the NFL at outside cornerback. So I think that they look at him as an outside guy, outside depth. And we're going to talk about some of the off-field issues in a little bit. They might have been why he slipped down to the 4th round in the NFL draft coming out of Arizona State in 2022. But Nate Hobbs, the 49ers' other cornerback signee during the course of this free agency, has actually played better football on the inside than on the outside. And both of these guys were with the Raiders at one point of their careers. Jones with the Raiders as his second team, Nate Hobbs with the Raiders to begin his career. Hobbs then signed a big contract with the Green Bay Packers. They had him playing outside, and he was nowhere near as effective of an outside cornerback as he was on the inside. So I think that they're looking at Hobbs as a big nickel. I think they're looking at Hobbs as a backup to Upton Stout. I think that makes a whole heck of a lot of sense. That's the smart thing to do if you're the 49ers. And I think that they're looking at Jack Jones as an outside cornerback. There, I think that the main competition is actually Darrell Luter Jr., not Saran Neal. Saran Neal's a specialist for the 49ers. Brant Boyer loves him on special teams. He's competing with other specialists for the 49ers. I don't think he's really competing with cornerbacks for that roster spot. But anyway, let's go through some of what Jack Jones has been able to accomplish and some of where he hadn't been quite as good over the course of his career. Now, he's allowed 16 touchdowns over the past 2 years, and he has been picked on a lot in that way over the past 2 seasons because only 18 touchdowns so far since 2022 over the start of his career. So early on, he was really, really good. Had a fire rookie season with the Patriots. As I said, 8 interceptions for Jack Jones over the course of the past 2 years. So absolutely is a ball hawk. There are 2 examples of him delivering a pick six against the quick screen pass. He did it in 2 different uniforms as well against 2 different teams. Victimized the Bengals, and I forgot who the first one was against, but I think it was, was it with the Raiders against the Dolphins? I think Easton Stick. No, it was against the Chargers. Easton Stick was the quarterback, another North Dakota State guy. Speaking of those North Dakota State Bison, but he just simply preyed on a quick screen pass. He watched his film and he hopped in front of it and he took it back for a touchdown. The guy has scored 4 career touchdowns, which is unusual, even for a star player to score 4 times from the defensive side of the ball. I mean, Deommodore Lenoir has scored 1 touchdown in his NFL career, and that was a special teams touchdown coming off of a blocked field goal against the Arizona Cardinals in 2024. He probably should have had a pick 6 last year against the Cardinals on the road, but he didn't follow Jason Pinnock's block, and he didn't score. It was like a 50 or 60-yard return, but he didn't score. It is hard to find a paint. It is hard to find the end zone as a defensive player. Jack Jones has done that. But when we go to boom or bust, well, he had a ton of pass breakups last year, 10 last year. He's got 33 over the course of his career. So that's a lot of pass breakups. He played over 1,000 snaps for the Dolphins. But at the same time, the guy has racked up 16 penalties over the course of the past 2 years. So what are you going to get with Jack Jones? That's why the 49ers are bringing him in as depth and not as a starter. And I can confidently say that when you look at this cornerback room for the 49ers, it is significantly deeper than it was in 2025. Darrell Luter Jr. might be forced out of the picture altogether if the 49ers have the type of health that they would like to have because of the additions of Jack Jones and Nate Hobbs to the depth portions of this defensive backfield. Now, the other day, I wrote about this on the San Francisco Standard. We took a look at how the 49ers cornerback room had performed last year. It was actually good, but I think that the depth is always a question at one of this sport's most important positions. And the title of my article up on the San Francisco Standard was How Raheem Morris Can Unlock the Full Potential of the 49ers Defensive Backs. And I think that the 49ers want to go after the football more than they have over the past couple seasons. They led the NFL in interceptions in 2022 and 2023. They certainly have not led the NFL in interceptions over the past 2 seasons. In fact, there was an almost record-long drought for the 49ers in interceptions over 2024 to 2025 that Deommodore Lenoir finally ended with his pick at the end of the first half against the Houston Texans. And the 49ers started to do a little bit better taking the ball away then. I don't necessarily blame this on the cornerback position. I think there were much bigger problems for San Francisco at safety. And, of course, the pass rush wasn't good. Only 20 sacks, which was a league low for San Francisco. So, I mean, I obviously view all of this within context, but you could still manufacture some interceptions even without a pass rush. And that's what Jack Jones has done over the course of his NFL career. He's also forced a few fumbles, 4 fumbles over the course of his NFL career. All right, let's take a look at the cornerbacks last season. Maybe I could even make this a little bit more prominent up on the screen so we can, discuss some of the metrics. And I think that Jones has been good when he's been on a hot streak in some of these metrics. I know that we talk a lot about a boom or bust cornerback. Well, take a look at this. Deommodore Lenoir, Renardo Green at the top, Upton Stout 49ers nickelback. Then Luter got 275 snaps last year because of the injury to Renardo Green, and Chase Lucas, who was recently signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But yards per cover snap, the league average is 1.2. So you want to keep that under 1.2. Every single 49ers corner except for Upton Stout was under that amount, but Upton turned it up over the back half of the season, and he was under that amount over the back half. So you got to give him credit for developing over his rookie year. Rating is going to be a little bit more volatile because if you get an interception, it's really going to help your rating, because obviously passer rating is badly damaged by interceptions. The 49ers, as long as you could keep this under 105, I think you're fine. Definitely under a 100, you're good. If you give up touchdown passes, that rating allowed is not going to be good at all. So Darrell Luter Jr., for example, didn't have an interception, but did give up at least a score. I forgot if it was a score or two. I think it was 2 last year. Didn't have all that many snaps, but a 132.2 rating into his coverage wasn't good. It gets the red marker. And then missed tackle percentage. This is somewhere where Jack Jones has really struggled over the course of his NFL career, and which is why he's not just going to waltz in and win a starting job. I think it's going to have to be an injury to either Lenoir or Green for Jones to start for this football team. His missed tackle rate was about 16 to 19% over the course of the seasons that he's played so far in this football league. I could even read you his missed tackle rates. We can go through them season by season. There was 18.9% his rookie year, 14.6%, so a little bit lower than 16. 2023, up to 17.4% in 2024, 18.8% missed tackle rate for Jack Jones in 2025. As far as rating allowed into his coverage, he was almost lights out his first 2 years in the NFL. 63.1 and 68.1 would have been the best number of any 49ers cornerback last year. But the past 2 seasons for Jack Jones, when he's given up all those touchdowns, I mean, it was boom or bust in 2024. 10 touchdowns and 10 pass breakups and 3 interceptions. So those ratings, though, were much higher, 115.8 and 115.7, which would have been second worst of the 49ers cornerbacks. So basically, you've got a talented guy who has these off-field issues, and I promised that I would get to those off-field issues because they might explain why Jack Jones dropped down to the 4th round, pick number 121 out of Arizona State. He went to USC from 2016 to 2017. Then he went to a junior college in California, Moore Park College in 2018. Then joined Arizona State with Coach Herm Edwards in 2019. And Herm Edwards was once the DB coach of John Lynch with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So there's the connection. He was at Arizona State, Jack Jones, at the same time that Brandon Ayuk was. So there's a little bit of a connection for you. We were just talking about Ricky Pearsall a little bit earlier today, but I'll get into the receiver news in a little bit. I want to finish talking about Jack Jones. He slipped down to the 121st overall pick, and most people believe it is because in 2018, he was arrested for commercial burglary, trying to break into a Panda Express in the middle of the night. Jones pled guilty to commercial burglary, a second-degree misdemeanor, and served 45 days of house arrest. So that was the first documented criminal off-field issue for Jack Jones. Then in 2023, when he was already a member of the Patriots, after a really good rookie season, Jones was arrested at the airport in Boston when 2 loaded guns were found in his carry-on baggage by TSA agents. They said that he was going to face multiple charges, but those charges were dropped after about 3 months. On September 5th, right before the start of the regular season, the charges were dropped. His attorney said at the time that Jack Jones had no intention of bringing any guns onto an airport that day. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means that somebody else packed his bag, but he brought 2 loaded guns with him in his carry-on baggage to the airport, but charges were later dropped. Now, so those are the 2 off-field incidents. The first one probably affected the draft stock. The second one, he had come off of a good year with the Patriots. Then he started his second year with New England, but in November, he week 9, he missed curfew at the team hotel and was benched. So this is after the arrest for bringing the loaded guns and the carry-on baggage to the airport. So he was waived shortly after. He played a very small role after his demotion, after his benching, I guess you would say, after missing curfew. The Patriots said they're done with him. Bill Belichick was still the coach of the New England Patriots, and that was that, right? Belichick was still the coach when they drafted him in 2022, and Belichick, I think, has considered himself somewhat of a DB guru, brought him in, but the Patriots then ran out of patience with Jack Jones. So he was claimed off of waivers by the Raiders. Antonio Pierce was the coach of the Raiders, or he was on the Raiders staff at the time. And Antonio Pierce had coached Jack Jones at Long Beach Poly. That was his high school, and was also on the staff of Arizona State under Herm Edwards when Jack Jones was in college. So Antonio Pierce was then with the Raiders in 2023. They picked him up. They continued his NFL career. Following his time with the Raiders, he was released in the 2025 offseason. Jones signed with the Dolphins. He had the interception that we've talked about against the Washington Commanders. He set up a win against Washington with that interception and played out his one-year deal with Miami and then became a free agent. Worked out for the 49ers today, and now Jack Jones is going to be a 49er. So I had to go through the off-field history because that indeed has all happened. We're just reading the facts as the facts have been presented. I don't think that this is a player, given that history, that you can bank your entire cornerback room on. But he's got a lot of talent. And there's also a lot of volatility. But the talent is, I think, what has stood out to the 49ers. That's where they've seen value. And now you could see here with the two signings shaded in teal, they have added Jack Jones and Nate Hobbs, two veterans, ahead of the NFL draft. And what the 49ers have been doing here, this is optionality that they've built themselves ahead of the NFL draft. They have needed to bolster the cornerback room. They no longer are forced to draft a cornerback just to bolster that room. They've decided instead to go into bargain bin free agency to strengthen what they have behind Deommodore Lenoir and Renardo Green and Upton Stout. And now the 49ers, I mean, they could still draft a corner, and I think you should always go for the best player available, especially in some of the later rounds, but they don't necessarily have to do that. And that leaves the door open for the 49ers to go after defensive linemen. That leaves the door open to go after a potential left guard or maybe even an offensive tackle. That leaves the door open to go after a tight end. Leaves the door open to go after a receiver, maybe even to go after a running back in this NFL draft. And of course, potentially to go after a safety. Maybe somebody like Cole Wisniewski. Maybe he's going to be an undrafted free agent, but word is that Cole Wisniewski is going to be taking, or has already taken a top 30 visit to the 49ers. Speaking of 30 visits, I talked about this a little bit earlier today. Caleb Douglas, the wide receiver out of Texas Tech. I mean, we want to talk about Wisniewski. Well, it's Wisniewski, it's Romello Height, the defensive end, and it is Caleb Douglas, the receiver. All three guys from Texas Tech, 30 visits with the 49ers. This is the relative athletic score for Caleb Douglas, a fast, lanky receiver who I talked about in the video earlier today. The Caleb Douglas story is fascinating to me. I mentioned Ricky Pearsall earlier in this show because he started his college career with Florida, where he was teammates with Pearsall. Then he transferred to Texas Tech. We now have 4 known 30 visits for the 49ers at wide receiver. Definite position of need, especially for the future for San Francisco. And of course, we now have our first safety visit documented for the 49ers in Cole Wisniewski, a teammate of the receiver who we talked about, Caleb Douglas, a little bit earlier today. So remember Douglas, remember Romello Height, and remember Cole Wisniewski as we go through some of these 49ers 30 visit lists. But with Wisniewski, 8 interceptions to lead the nation, FCS that one season with North Dakota State. And then with our latest discussion, Jack Jones, well, he's created a lot of takeaways in his NFL career. Good athlete, would have been drafted higher. The whole criminal burglary, it was a misdemeanor charge back in 2018 for Jack Jones. I think really, and this was far before he entered the NFL, right? This was early in his time during college. That whole incident, I think, definitely lowered his draft stock. And the 49ers have a player who's very talented, who's shown a lot of upside in the NFL, but has also shown a big low floor in the NFL. So low floor, high ceiling for Jack Jones. But boy, he does have a nose for the football, and he does make the 49ers potential depth upside. We'll put it that way. Their depth upside at the cornerback position higher. All right. I am going to answer some questions on this beautiful Friday evening. Let's talk. Yeah, it is not going to be, I highly doubt there's going to be a lot of guaranteed money for Jack Jones. There are people talking about the contract. These are 1-year deals. Typically, when you see a 1-year deal, this stage of free agency, it is not going to break the bank. And I'm sure that's what the 49ers are thinking right now. If you want a salary cap update, Mike has it here on the new tool. You can see the roster and you could see the cap. Here's the 53-man roster. You click on salary. 49ers at just under $20 million. We've got to get the new contracts in. We don't have the contracts over the past days in for the 49ers. They had an addition yesterday along the defensive line, which we're going to have to add as well. Here, let's go to the 53-man roster. Let's scroll down to that defensive line. You've got Cam Sample, and now, of course, you have the new cornerback who we've been talking about for the 49ers, Jack Jones. Both of those contracts we will input into the system, and we will see what the exact salary cap hits are for the 49ers. We got people talking about hoping for a veteran safety. Well, you might still see that happen. I wouldn't be all too concerned about the order in which signings are happening. The 49ers right now, looking at my 53-man depth chart with Jones added to it, still have 14 spots left to fill on their roster. So the 49ers can still add a veteran safety. When they added to Sean Gibson back in the 2022 offseason, it was shortly before the regular season began. So I don't know if that's an exact rush for the 49ers. They might want to see who they draft. Obviously, they just worked out a safety on a top 30 visit. They also might want to see how OTAs go at safety. They've got Marquise Siegel. They've got Jair Brown. They've got Malik Mustafa. They now have Nate Hobbs. I think one of the things that's really interesting about the 49ers cornerback position is that the corners may take on some of the duties that the safeties had last offseason. For example, Jason Pinnock, who was a safety, the fourth safety, would have been in this spot for the 49ers. He's the one that played that big nickel position for San Francisco. He's the one that slid over to that big nickelback spot that the 49ers needed because Upton Stout is only 5'9". So you need a bigger body there for different situations. So they took a safety who obviously didn't have as good of cover skills as a cornerback to play that added defensive back. If Nate Hobbs takes the big nickel this year, which I think will happen because he's been really good playing on the inside, then you're going to have a cornerback background playing the big nickel, which I think can improve San Francisco's coverage adaptability. So they may have already helped the safety position through a cornerback addition through Nate Hobbs. As Mike says, the 49ers can always make a trade for a safety at the deadline as well. They can really experiment to see what they have with this group. And Nate, I asked Kyle, is Nate going to play safety? You're going to try him at safety. He has seen a few snaps there. Kyle Shanahan said, we haven't thought about that yet, but he didn't deny that they were potentially looking at him as a big nickel. And I think that makes way too much sense with Nate Hobbs. For Jack Jones, there have been very minimal snaps on the outside for Jack Jones and on the inside in his NFL career. He is an outside cornerback through and through. And I think that Darrell Luter Jr. is entering the final year of his deal. Obviously was the 49ers' worst outside cornerback last year, just as a depth piece. Barring injuries, Jack Jones displaces, in all likelihood, displaces Darrell Luter Jr. as the 49ers' top backup at that outside cornerback position. Have you guys ever tried some of this water? It's really fancy water, Saratoga Springs. They didn't pay me to do this, but it's good water. Need to hydrate here on this beautiful Friday evening. Any returners worth drafting out at, say, Casey Concepcion? KC is, he's housed a couple punts, and he could be a first-round receiver. 49ers are definitely interested in him. He did take a 30 visit to San Francisco. And the 49ers do need to fill that returner spot. That is an issue for the 49ers. They, unfortunately, have lost Sky Moore, and that has left an opening. Christian Kirk has returned punts in the past, but I don't know if you want Christian Kirk doing that. It's been a few seasons since he's done that. I think the 49ers probably want a younger player in that role. Now, Jack Jones, this is interesting. I think I should do a little bit more research into what Jack Jones has done on special teams. Anytime that you add a defensive back or a receiver, it's worth at least asking and seeing what they might be able to do at a return man position. And Jack, I mean, he's obviously an athletic guy. I'm even going to go to Pro Football Reference right now and see just how much experience he has in both of those roles. We're going to go to advanced defense. We got defense and fumbles. Does he have any return statistics? There's a chance he doesn't have any. There's a chance that he was never entrusted with that job. But he only got to the position that he's in because of how good of an athlete he is. I mean, that's what the NFL is all about. So I'm sure that he's done it at lower levels. Yeah, I don't see any records here. Mike, do you see any records of here? I have some special teams. No, I don't. He hasn't scored any return touchdowns. I know that. He has scored 4 times on defense as a pick 6. Mike will look more into that for us here in a second as we talk about Jack Jones. I don't want to get buried in all these statistics. I'd rather answer some of your questions. Is the defensive line going to be ready at the start of the season? They should be. I think there's going to be some question about Mykel Williams. And Mike says no punt return or kick return experience for Jack Jones. So that answers the question. Mykel Williams got hurt 6 weeks after Nick Bosa. Same injury, ACL tear. But I would think that he's going to be back at least early in the season. Bosa expected back for training camp. Mykel too at some point in training camp. And then Keon White should be back. He was shot in the ankle at the Super Bowl, but we already saw him lifting weights the other day without a brace on his ankle. And then there's Alfred Collins coming off of the shoulder injury. So I think the 49ers will be healthy to start the season. How do I feel about the strength of the draft? I think that's a really good question. I think that the draft is not deep this year. They were talking more about depth last year on the 49ers at 11 picks. This year, the consensus, and this is not just from the 49ers, this is consensus that I've gathered from around the league. It seems that the later rounds are not quite as strong, and it just so happens that the 49ers don't have any picks beyond round 4. They don't have a 5. They don't have a 6. They don't have a 7. So I'm not really sure how much value there's going to be if there's a trade that involves getting more picks and then getting later round picks in this draft. I think the 49ers are very happy to have 6 in the top 150 picks of this NFL draft. William thinks the 49ers special teams won't be good this season. Well, they got a good coordinator. We'll see. And they've got the kicker re-sign. I think they've upgraded a punter with Corliss Waitman. It's the return job that I think is the big question mark, and that obviously still remains vacant. So we'll see who takes over that position for San Francisco. I think the team is going to fly out about a week early to Australia. I'm flying out over a week early, but I think the team will be about a week early out over to Melbourne. With these latest one-year signings, no, you don't get comp picks for signing players. You only get comp picks if guys leave, and it's part of a formula. Who leaves, who you gain. So if anything, signings hurt your comp pick formula, but I think these are all small enough signings to where they're not going to hurt the 49ers in the comp pick formula. Could Luter work at safety or nickel to survive the Jack Jones signing? Well, I think Luter's a long player. I think he's a better outside cornerback than he is an inside cornerback. The way that Luter could survive the Jack Jones signing is A, injuries, and B, he could just compete. Jack Jones is not a lock for anything. I mean, Jack Jones, he's given up too many touchdowns, committed too many penalties, especially over the past couple of years. We know of the off-field issues. It's a total flyer signing for the 49ers. If Darrell Luter Jr. just continues working hard and proving that he can be as stable of a commodity as possible, he has a really good chance to make this roster, and that is notwithstanding injuries. I mean, you've just got to continue fighting in the NFL. The 49ers are not wrong for trying to bolster such an important position. More bites out of the apple in round 4? Are you talking about a trade back out of rounds 1 and 2? Maybe. I think if you trade back from the early rounds, you want to make sure you keep your picks inside of round 5 if you're the 49ers. I think that's the smart way to do things. Are the 49ers going to bring in Uar Bernard for a visit? I don't know for a visit, but if they can get him as an undrafted free agent, why the heck not? Guy's a good enough athlete, I think, to take a flyer on him as a UDFA. All right, that is the intel. That's the lowdown on Jack Jones, new 49ers cornerback, ball hawk. Highlight tape is fun. The off-field sheet of incidents is not nearly as fun. He's been with several teams. He's got ability. He improves the 49ers depth, but there's certainly not a guy that they're giving a long-term contract to rely on. Herm Edwards is the connection that goes back to Arizona State. John Lynch's former defensive backs coach with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. All right, guys, everybody, thanks for watching. 49ers still have plenty of more moves to make. If you want to take a look at the 49ers depth chart, this is where it's at. 75 out of 90 spots filled. One more spot, though, there has to go to Brandon Ayuk. So 14 more signings to make. More tomorrow. We'll talk to you very, very soon.